Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. I am JR. You are listening to Three Things with JR. This is episode number 31. Sweet. This one's going to be slightly different than the normal three things. There is no normal three things, as you may have gathered if you've listened up through all the episodes till now. Every episode, a little bit different than the others. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes I have a guest. Sometimes that guest is a comedian. Sometimes that guest is my mom or my dad or my sister or my daughter. And sometimes it's my girlfriend's dad. Kiki, my girlfriend, her parents came to visit this last week. They were here for several days, Pam and Rick. And Rick and I sat down here in my bedroom in the same room. This is the first time I've had a guest in the studio, quote unquote studio, with me to record the podcast. And we had a great discussion. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I wasn't sure I was even going to air it. I knew I was going to record it because Rick is an interesting dude. I enjoyed talking to him, and when they were here, he came out he played disc golf with me, or well, more accurately, he watched me play disc golf. He was not really trying to throw discs around the disc golf course, but he did show an interest in hanging out, and him and I got to talking about a bunch of different things, but there's some things he's pretty passionate about, and it became clear that we should record this discussion, and sure enough, it ended up being so much fun talking to Rick and learning. I have to say I learned a lot talking to Rick all week long, and of course during the podcast episode recording interview thing that we did. So I'm definitely putting it out. That's what you're about to listen to is Rick Osborne and myself talking about a bunch of things, but mainly money stuff, economics. This is not the type of thing. I don't think you're tuning into Three Things with JR to hear economic theories about how the world could be better, how America could be better with different economic policy than we have right now. What? Is that what you were thinking? It's not what I was thinking was ever going to be a topic on Three Things, but turned out to be such an illuminating conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I think you'll enjoy it as well. We also talked about a podcast that we're both listening to now that's pretty cool, and exercise and stuff like that. And he's passionate about all of these things, and had a really fun time talking with Rick. This podcast is slowly growing. I love talking to you guys about numbers, and if I'm looking at the numbers right now, total plays, according to Anchor, which is the company that I use, the website that I use that hosts this podcast, Anchor is that place. So you can find my podcast on anchor.fm/JR-Stoffel. That's me, anchor.fm/JR-Stoffel. Of course, if you wait for, me to post that a new episode is up on podcast, you already know that. That's the link that I give you is the link to the episode on anchor.fm. And if you go to the page for my podcast, there is a place where you can support the podcast, and you can also drop me messages. That might be the coolest place if you want to actually interact with me somehow regarding Three Things with JR. That's a cool place to do it. You can message me right there. That has yet to happen. But anyway, back to total plays. Total plays were up to 625 total plays. And what all that really means is that this is the combined total number of times your podcast episodes have been streamed or downloaded across all listening platforms. Note that plays may be included in this total before they are reflected in your charts. Okay, so that's fine print. So 625 people have hit play on at least one of my episodes on any of the potential streaming platforms. That feels good. I don't know. That's probably not big numbers when compared to other podcasts, but for me, I've only and ever really promoted this individually. I'm talking to people and telling them about it, as well as on Facebook. I haven't really done it with anything else. So I'm still trying to figure out if I want to promote it or spend any money promoting it. I don't know. estimated audience size according to Anchor. And what this means is the average number of plays each of your episodes gets within 30 days after publishing. And that number is much lower. That's 24 people. So, and Anchor does pay you for your podcast. I do an Anchor ad. It's the same ad for the most part in all these episodes. I recorded it a while ago. I drop it in the middle of the episode, and Anchor pays me a little bit for that. So I've made $5.63 doing this podcast, which that's a win. That's a big win to be able to get paid to do this, anything at all. I mean, for the most part, I would pay to do it. So the fact that they are giving me some money is pretty cool. Looking at deeper numbers here, it's interesting always for me to see where people are listening. We've added a few more countries to the list. Singapore and the United Kingdom are now on the list. There are people in those countries, in addition to all the others: France, Portugal, Germany, India, El Salvador, Japan, Ireland, and of course, 94% of my audience is right here in the United States. So we are going worldwide at a very snail's pace. So, but it is happening, and that brings me joy. And today I was responding to an email to my dad, and it caused me to think, what is the purpose of this podcast? What am I doing this for? And one of the reasons I was thinking that is because at some point or another, both my mother and my father have been very unhappy with things that I have or that someone has said on my podcast. And that always bums me out. I'd like making my parents happy. But if I'm really thinking about the main goal of this podcast, it's probably not to make a show that is tailored to my parents. It's probably to make the show I feel like making each week, and that is different each week. And it's what's on my mind. It's what I'm interested in doing. It's who I'm interested in talking to. And I don't want there to be necessarily, I don't want it to be pigeonholed into sort of one thing. I don't want to be felt like there's, any restrictions on what I might say or do. I kind of want to be free to say and do whatever I want, within reason, of course. But anyway, Mom, Dad, if you're listening to this episode, and Dad may not be, he has told me he's never going to listen again. I have a feeling he is, but at least a few weeks ago, he was not super thrilled with the goings on this podcast. But I really do hope the parents keep listening. But again, it's not exactly for you, Mom and Dad. But if you get joy out of it, then awesome. That does also make me happy. My mom, we did a Mother's Day episode honoring my mother. We also did one for my dad, but my Mother's Day episode was, up until recently, the most listened to episode of this show. And that has now been surpassed by our episode with Mark Connor, local celebrity and dear friend Mark Sparky Connor's episode is now the most listened to, although that may be very soon surpassed by the very next episode, episode number 30, A Day at the Lake, where I spent some time talking with my daughter, Allison. So that one's almost there. It's almost beating Sparky's episode. And I love that the numbers are going up. I love that you're listening. I hope that you're getting some joy out of this. And I also hope you enjoy my interview with Rick Osborne. You've never heard of him, but you will have now if you keep listening to this. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy it. And here we go. All right, we're recording. Everything you say from here on out can be used against you on a podcast.
Amen.
Amen. So I'm going to do like an intro recording later. So I'll do like all of that where I tell people kind of basically who you are.
And why I am.
And why you are. why you are. But we'll do a little bit of that here as well.
Okay.
So Rick Osborne is my guest on the show today.
Hi, Adam.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. And Rick typically lives in Illinois, but is here visiting Virginia. Why are you here?
My my lovely daughter is your better half. And,
That's right.
We came out to see Kiki. So
Yep. Kiki, my girlfriend, we live here, and Rick and his wife Pam, you guys drove all the way out here
in one day.
all in one day. Now, normally you don't do that, right? Normally
No.
you stay over.
Yep. COVID changes everything.
COVID changes it, so your willingness to put the full day of driving in as opposed to having a break.
We forgot the hotel.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
No hotel.
Did you have any COVID issues or anything while traveling?
No, my wife talked about it a lot, but
Yeah. Were you nervous at like the gas station pumping gas and stuff like that?
No. I don't get too nervous about much of anything. I'm a lot like Kiki.
Yeah. Okay. So
He doesn't get too nervous about too much of anything.
no, and she's not really into wearing masks.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm more willing to wear a mask than Kiki is. So
You're not quite as anti-mask as Kiki.
not quite as anti-mask. No.
Which is good. I mean, you're a little bit older. You're a little bit more vulnerable, right? If something were to happen, it could be more of a serious issue.
And I'm more of an anti-Trump guy than she is.
Well, there you go. I have a bit that I do in my comedy routine sometimes, where I talk about how I've evolved throughout this whole pandemic. I went from being completely against the idea of wearing a mask for a long time until I finally had to start wearing one, and then I was still resistant to it. Still only wore them when I absolutely had to. But at the time, and still, Trump is very anti-mask. He's like very nonchalant about it, and it was one of the only things I've ever agreed with Trump about. Was like, we hate wearing masks. We don't think we really need them, and so there for like a tiny little red hot second, I was considering voting for Trump so that we wouldn't have to wear masks. Like that was the major issue that affected my life directly was wearing masks. And so I considered voting for Trump until I remember that he's the same guy that told us all that if we drink gasoline, it will improve our sperm count. And I was like, no, we can't do that.
This is the guy that I decided early on that everything that comes out of his mouth is false. As simple as that.
It's pretty much.
If he says up, it's down. If he says black, it's white.
Yeah.
If whatever he says is lie.
So I just said
not true.
I just said that Trump said if you drink gasoline, it'll improve your sperm count. And you didn't bat an eye. You just figured he said that, right? I just made that up. He didn't say that.
I know he said take Lysol for your COVID, and I was hoping they'd pump a gallon of it in.
So when
while he was in the hospital.
When I do that joke in a comedy show, I point out that, hey, you guys thought that he really said that, didn't you? He did not say that.
He's perfectly capable of saying that.
He did not say that yet. That's true. That's where I get the laugh.
It's
right
coming.
there.
Right.
Yeah. And it works whether they are a Trump crowd or a not-Trump crowd or a mixed crowd. Everybody can kind of laugh at that.
Everybody knows he's a goofball. No.
Yeah. It seems like the Trump supporters, one thing in their favor is they have a pretty good sense of humor. They kind of have to with their nut brain leader, right? Because if you don't have a sense of humor, then you have to take it seriously, and then it becomes scary. And if you're not taking it seriously, and if you're able to look at it all with a sense of humor, then, I don't know, that's kind of scary too for those of us that both take it seriously and have a sense of humor all at the same time.
I lost my sense of humor over him a long time ago.
Yeah. So Rick is here, and I have a podcast, and we thought, well, heck, why not? I enjoy sitting around hanging and talking with Rick about lots of things. Rick is he's very passionate about a couple things, so we're going to talk about some things, and that's the whole show is 3 things. So hopefully Rick is ready for all 3. Thing number 1, as you've listened to a few of my episodes of the show, so you kind of get how it works. Mm-hmm. Sometimes on my show, it's just me. I'm just sitting here. I write down some stuff that I want to talk about, and then it's kind of ad lib. I don't write a script out, at least not usually. Sometimes I do, but it's usually just me talking about whatever's on my mind. Sometimes I'll have a guest, and I'll record with them virtually, using Zoom or whatever.
Trump reads his.
Oh, yeah, that other people write?
That other people write.
Yeah. If Trump is speaking eloquently, he's reading something somebody else wrote. Yeah. So
then he's not eloquent. So.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll have guests on, and we'll do it virtually. Sometimes, like the other day, I recorded with my daughter, and we recorded live outside, all that. So what do we? There's no necessarily a running theme of topics on this show. It could literally be anything. So I could have a comedian on. We could be talking jokes. I could have my daughter on. We could be talking about her being a mom. I had my dad on. We talked about arguing about Trump and Facebook and all lives matter and Black Lives Matter. And it can go, this show can go really dirty because there's a podcast. There's no rules, right? So we can say whatever we want. And sometimes we do.
Can I say dirty?
Absolutely.
Dirty.
Yeah. You can say whatever the fuck you want, Rick.
Fucking dirty.
There you go. And so sometimes we go really dirty, and sometimes it stays 100% clean. And so it's...
I can say clean as well.
You can say clean.
Fucking clean?
Fucking clean.
Okay.
I like it. I like you, Rick. There's a reason I like your daughter, too. So,
she's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
She's a walking reason, yeah.
Yeah, she's 100% great. So... So this topic that I know we're going to be talking about, because we've kind of been talking about it all week since you guys have been here, is not something any of my listeners are going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense that he's talking about that. This is not something that I would even occur to me to discuss. I'm not a money guy or anything like that. So we're going to get into thing number one, which is something kind of deep or personal, something that is important to you. And I'm just going to let you take over here, and I want you to tell me the summary or whatever of this thing that we've been talking about that is important to you, because clearly it is. And I want you to get right up on that mic and give it to us. Tell me what it is that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, what we have been talking about, Adam, is a concept that is known as binary economics.
Binary economics.
Binary economics. So we're talking about economics.
Okay.
And the problem that binary economics looks to address is the problem of concentrated wealth. When you have 1% of the population, a mere handful of people that own more wealth than 90% of the American population, you have concentrated wealth, and that is a cancer.
So we've had that for a while, but it has been getting worse.
Far worse. And it's gotten far worse under Trump.
And we've all been made aware of how much worse it's been getting, thanks a lot to Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders made it his main issue in 2016. But actually, it preceded him with the Occupy Wall Street movement, which gave us that made the term 1% part of our political vocabulary.
Yeah, got
now
it.
Everybody realizes that there is 1% of the American population that is basically controlling and owning Congress, Senate, and the presidency. That is not a democracy. You cannot have a democracy when the economy is so concentrated in the hands of a few people at the expense of everybody else, and that's the issue that Bernie Sanders has been looking to address, that so many people have caught on to Bernie about. But this looks to address the same issue, but in a different way. Bernie addresses it in what is commonly known as a socialistic way, from a government standpoint, top-down standpoint. This addresses it in a capitalistic, private ownership sort of way. It accomplishes everything that Bernie wants to accomplish and more, but it does it in a free market, individualistic, private ownership orientation to the economy.
So you're talking about a solution to that whole 1% thing, the top down.
Absolutely. We're talking about how to make America a democracy instead of how to make America great. Let's make it a democracy. We tell everybody we're a democracy, but we're bullshitting everybody to get dirty.
It's what it's supposed to be.
And what it's supposed to be, what we're supposed to be proud of, what we're fighting for, what we go overseas and put our lives on the line for. We don't go over there to put our lives on the line for a bunch of damn billionaires who are stealing from the people right and left, which is what is going on right now. If that's what we have, why would anybody salute the flag? Why would anybody pledge allegiance to America if we're just a bunch of billionaires that's controlling everybody?
Yeah.
That is not what we are about. If we're not a democracy or looking to find some way to get to be a democracy, we have nothing over anybody else. There's this American exceptionalism is sheer bullshit.
And you are familiar with a solution, a potential solution It's not in place yet, doesn't exist yet.
The
But it could.
idea exists.
The idea exists,
ideas
but it's
exist.
not something that can happen yet. Some things have. What is this thing? You're involved with it somehow,
I'm
right?
involved with a group called the Center for Economic and Social Justice. The website is cesj.org. And I have been in and around this organization for the past 20 years. And they are proponents of a concept that has actually been known for the past 19 years as capital homesteading. The concept is being rebranded as economic democracy.
Okay.
And the whole idea is basically let's recognize that over the past 40 years, salaries and wages have pretty much stagnated. On the other hand, the ownership side of the economy, owning stocks, bonds, land, machines, copyrights, technology, et cetera, has exploded. Most of the wealth that is being produced in the economy today is not being produced on the working side of the economy. It's being produced on the ownership side of the economy, yet only about 10% of the people have any significant access to that ownership side, and it's the 1% that controls most of that.
So, and by ownership, you're talking about the people that own companies.
Own stocks and bonds.
Okay.
Own land. Own patents, copyrights, technologies, anything that is a wealth-producing capital asset where you have money working for you instead of you working for the money.
So we're talking about the difference between you and me are both working for money, right?
We are both
hourly salaried. We are working for somebody else. The job we do earns us a salary, a wage, and we get paid for the work we do.
The term that is sometimes used is wage slaves. You and I are both wage slaves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who we are.
And that is one side of the coin. On the other side, the ownership side
is where the money has been made.
If you own a company or if you own stocks.
Let's put it this way. Mitt Romney has never had a job in his entire life.
Bain Capital.
George W. Bush has never had a job in his life.
He could never go to another office,
Donald Trump
never take another business phone call, never talk to another business associate.
And still have tons of money.
And not only will he just have enough money to live, he will continue making money because his money is working for him.
You got it.
That's the other side of the coin from the wage slaves.
That's the ownership side.
Okay.
That's the ownership. The ownership side doesn't work. They just own.
And your plan, or the plan of the Center for Economic and Social Justice, did I get that right?
You got it right.
Sweet.
And the act is called it was the Capital Homesteading Act. Now it's going to be called the Economic Democracy Act.
The Economic Democracy Act is a bit of federal legislation that has to get passed.
Proposed.
It's proposed right now.
Yeah.
And if it were to ever become law, then the solution you guys have been envisioning for almost 20 years now could come to fruition. What is the idea? What would it be?
The basic idea is to recognize, first off, that on the average, the American economy grows at approximately $4 trillion annually. So it creates $4 trillion worth of new wealth, predictably, every year. The other thing is to recognize that there are approximately 330 million people in the country today. So if you divide 4 trillion by 330 million, that averages out to about $12,000 for every man, woman, child in the USA today.
Okay.
And the proposal that capital homesteading / economic democracy suggests is to give every man, woman, and child in the country today access to a capital homesteading or economic democracy loan, capital credit loan that can be used only to buy wealth-producing capital assets, to buy stocks, to buy bonds, to buy land, to buy machines, to buy technology, to buy copyrights, to buy patents, to buy access to things that are going to predictably produce dividends. And not only, so you're going to get this loan of $12,000, but when you get this loan and it is paid off, not with your personal savings, not by putting a second income or a second mortgage on your home, it is paid off by future dividends that the the stock or bonds or whatever it is going to yield, and it's the loan, by the way, is being made at 0%, and it's paid back in pre-tax dollars. It's paid off in pre-tax dollars, which speeds up the ownership process dramatically.
Yep.
So it's somewhere between 3 and 7 years is the payoff time. After the payoff is made and you own the capital asset outright, it's still producing dividends that becomes residual or passive income to you. For example, if the thing we're put together today, and a kid turns 10 years old, by the time he's 10 years old, he would have approximately $120,000 having been invested on his behalf. So that's 10 times $12,000, $120,000 that would have been produced on his behalf and would be producing dividends, that passive income that would be going into his capital homesteading economic democracy account.
Okay.
By the time he reaches 18 and wants to go to college, the kid is going to have well in excess of over $200,000 having been invested on his behalf, producing lots more dividends, which is to say that every kid in the United States would have plenty of money to go to college, and he wouldn't have to borrow any money. He wouldn't have to chase down any loans, any grants, any scholarships. He would have the money to do what he wants to do.
So you've explained this to me 3 times now, and this is not what I spend my time thinking about at all. My mind doesn't work in this realm, right? And it is by now, you've explained it very well 3 times in a row, and it is just now that it's really starting to sink in. So I think the way I want to sort of paraphrase it back to you,
please,
to see if I understand what you're saying.
That would help. That'd be good.
And hopefully this will help anybody in my audience who needs it, like me, explained more than once. And so let's say this in the future, this legislation gets passed.
Yeah.
Right? It gets passed, and it's going to start January 1, whatever year, 2025, right? Every man, woman, and child in America will probably have to go to a website and register for this, right?
Yep.
Some will, some won't, but everybody can.
Everybody.
So
everybody that has any interest in
Yeah.
having
Why wouldn't you?
economic prosperity would absolutely do it.
So every adult, and then every adult on behalf of their kid or kids can register for each person.
So a 4-person family would be
$48,000.
$48,000 annually.
I can do some basic math.
Yeah.
Right. That's about. Don't do any. Don't test me again on that.
Yeah, and then in 10 years, it's $480,000 for the family.
So we go to this website, we register. The government loans us money, and it's not actual cash put into an account. It's the same as all other money right now. It's virtual money, right?
It's a credit card.
It's a credit card. It's a loan.
And it is capital credit as opposed to consumer credit. Consumer credit is what you buy beer with. Capital credit is what you buy capital assets with.
Okay.
And it comes, generally speaking, it comes at a much lower interest rate. With consumer credit, they charge you an arm and a leg.
26%.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Capital credit, it's low interest that is paid off in a predictable way that starts producing dividends that eventually become residual income for you and your daughter and her.
So this thing becomes law. It happens. I go. I'm I don't have kids right now or of my own or anything like that. So I'm going to go and register just me. I'm going to register, and there's going to be $12,000. And now what do? I think, based on what we've talked about this week, I'm going to go figure out some way to invest that money.
With the help of your local banker, who will give you some sound advice and steer you towards conservative investments that will predictably pay off.
So this is not money that I'm free to invest however I want
Absolutely not.
I get that I can't just go buy stuff with it.
No,
right?
I
can't go buy a car or anything like that.
Wealth-producing capital asset. A car deteriorates. It doesn't depreciate. It deteriorates.
Could I buy a house with it? Or put a down payment on a house with it?
You could buy a building with it. You might be able to buy a house with it. Yeah, you might be able to.
So, I mean, the obvious thing that I could do with that money is invest in the stock market, like a low-risk mutual fund type of a situation, right?
Absolutely.
Where I'm not necessarily picking and choosing 100 companies in which to invest, but I'm choosing a trustworthy investment firm
Predictable.
to come
Gotta
up
be
with
predictable.
a low risk,
A low risk.
long term, playing the long game here. Invest that $12,000 or whatever part of it into that, and then so that's going to now become money making money.
Money making money. Exactly.
Right, and so as that money makes more money, it pays off the loan, which was the $12,000 that was put in my account.
Once that loan is paid off, it's still producing dividends.
So do I get a new loan every year?
Every year.
So that's a new loan every year.
A new loan every year that is paid back at 0% interest in pre-tax dollars, that pays off quickly, relatively quickly. And again, by the time you hit college age, you got money to go to college. By the time you hit retirement age, guess what? You don't need Social Security. You don't need Medicare.
Yeah.
You don't need the social safety net. Done correctly, this eliminates the need for the social safety net, because everybody has enough money to pay the damn bills.
And so I could invest.
And it creates no debt. Adam. Excuse me.
I was like, wait, what?
It creates no debt. No individual debt, no government debt. As a matter of fact, what it does create is millions and millions of more taxpayers who will be paying lots more in the way of taxes, lower rate, because you're diluting the.
So this would count once your money is earning money.
And you're paying taxes on it.
And you've paid off the loan, and now you're into dividends. You pay taxes on that.
You pay taxes on it, and you have lots more people who are capable of paying taxes as opposed to getting welfare.
So my 2.5-year-old granddaughter would be paying taxes.
once the dividends start kicking in, you're paying capital gains.
But and you said that's on average 5 to 7 years. So she's 2.5 now. This happened tomorrow. By the time she's 9 or 10, she's
she could be paying taxes.
That first $12,000 will have been paid off
at least,
and now there's money going into an account that is hers.
That's hers.
That literally she could spend it however she wants.
However she wants.
She could go buy beer with it. Maybe not.
She could go buy beer.
But I mean, you could do that. This is free money. It's not free money, but it's money that is yours.
It's passive income.
Yeah.
And it's going to go to people who are going to be financially literate because of it, and they will become much more responsible because of it. We will have much less insecurity, creating people that are much more sane and not having to worry about whether they're going to be able to feed their kids, put a roof over their kids' head, put clothes on their back, give them an education, et cetera, because they're going to have enough money to do the things they need to do.
So I think I get the program now. I understand it. There's one, I think, I'm going to say major aspect of it that I do not think we can get me the knowledge I need to understand this tonight, but I'll just throw it out there.
But we've got you enough knowledge that you're intrigued.
Absolutely. I'm in favor of it. I love the idea of it. And what I would do personally, before we get to this part I still don't understand, but what I would do as far as investing that money is I don't know. I don't have the brain power to sit there and figure out investments and stuff. I like the idea of putting it all into a low to medium risk thing that just makes money. I don't want to think about it. And
most people don't.
And that's what I do with my 401k now. I sometimes I can remember my password so I can go look at it and see how much money there is and is it going up or is it going down. That's about it. Once every year or so I might look at it. I don't want to think about it. And so that's just how I am. And I think a lot of people are not going to be into like, oh, now I got to figure out investments and I need to take a class on that. No, it doesn't sound like you have to for this to work.
You don't have to. But if you do work in conjunction with a local banker that is going to give you good advice.
How does the banker get paid?
There is a percentage that pays the bank to handle this kind of stuff.
So it wouldn't be would that be like maybe it's not a 0 interest loan, but maybe it's a 1% interest. I mean, where does that money go? Like, do I got to come up with it?
Yeah, it is part of the insurance actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because this loan is insured. I mean, it's a loan that, and anything can go bad. Even Amazon has been recently. What's his name?
Bezos.
Says that Amazon's going to go broke one of these days. So
he's been saying that since the very beginning, and he's the richest motherfucker on the planet.
Yeah. Well,
He lost half of his money to his ex-wife, and now they are the two richest people on the planet.
yeah. Well,
And Amazon's cutting costs, saving pennies.
yeah. Well,
Okay, let's talk about, and again, I don't think we can go all the way into this, but when you say...
there's a website that does go all the way into it.
Okay, and we gave it one.
CESJ.org.
CESJ.org. We're going to do that again here when we're done with thing one. But the part that I still don't understand is we started off by saying the economy grows by $4 trillion a year.
Exactly. On average.
So I don't even know what that means. Like, I get that there is an economy. It's the buying and selling, the all of the stuff that happens with money, right? So if we counted everything that's bought and sold in 1 year, is that what you mean by that?
New homes, new cars, new electronics equipment, all
Beer,
kinds of
stocks. I mean, that includes everything.
Everything
right?
it grows. It creates $4 trillion of new wealth predictably, and currently only about 10% of the population gets to take advantage of this very predictable growth.
You lost me at it creates new wealth. I don't understand that. So
the economy itself,
if
grows.
there's $4 trillion worth of stuff in a normal year, not 2020, in a normal year that's bought and sold, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next year, more stuff is bought and sold.
Every year, the economy grows naturally.
Well, where does that money come from?
From new work, new products, new sales, new activity in the economy. Everything that happens in the economy is when you sell a computer at
Crutchfield.
Yeah. You pay X amount for it. You sell it for Y. There's new money that's created right there.
Yeah, but that money came from somebody else's pocket. It's not like there's more money in the world now.
That's true.
So it's not like I remember learning in school. Is it called the gold standard, where it used to be that every dollar was backed up by a chunk of gold somewhere? Yeah. I mean, I know that we don't do that anymore.
No.
And is that the reason that this is possible? If that were still the case, again, this is my feeble economic brain trying to understand this concept. Yeah. If we still had the gold standard, if there was still a bit of gold backing up every dollar, could the economy grow by $4 trillion, or would we need to get more gold for that to happen?
Yeah, well, it's not even close to the gold standard. But you still have things that are predictably worth something.
Okay.
So it's the corporation as it grows, Crutchfield.
Yeah.
As it grows, it may be worth $100 million this year. It may be worth $110 million next year.
Okay.
It's grown. It's created $10 million
But that's
wealth.
because 1 million people bought stuff from us. And so those people don't have that money anymore. They have a new home theater system, right? And we have the money. But the amount of money that's in the world didn't change. It just changed hands.
That's true, and I'm not going to be able to explain this very well.
See, that's what I didn't think we were going to get to a point where I understand that. I think we're at like college level economics class that I have zero desire to take. Even now, as intrigued as I am with this idea, I don't think I'm going to fully understand how the basic fundamentals of modern economics works.
I wish I could explain it to you better.
Nothing against you for not being it. This is me. This is my brain.
No, it's a two-way street.
I just don't think in these circles. So let's give the website again and the name of the stuff, and we'll finish. We'll wrap up thing number one here. So what was the website again, and what's it all called?
And it's the Center for Economic and Social Justice, CESJ.org. And the act is going to be called instead of the Capital Homesteading Act, it will be called the Economics Democracy Act.
The Economics Democracy Act.
And you can find that act written, in detail on the website. So it is all ready to go to Congress, to the Senate, and ready for President to sign. And if Trump really wanted to make America great again, he would pass this bill. He would promote this bill, but he doesn't. He's just bullshitting. So. That's not going to happen.
So do people other than going to this website to find out about this, is there action people can take? Actions that people can take to help this move along?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, the original book that was written in 1958, by the way, so 60 years ago, was called The Capitalist Manifesto.
Okay.
And it was written by a lawyer by the name of Louis Kelso and a professional.
I gotta say, anytime the word manifesto is used, it seems like it's a bad thing. But it seems like you're going somewhere else with
It's
this.
just simply a play on Marx's Communist Manifesto. It's the opposite.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And the co-author was the premier Aristotelian philosopher in the world. The guy's name is Mortimer Adler, University of Chicago, father of the great books movement. He's no dummy. And those two guys wrote the Capitalist Manifesto in 1958. So the idea has been out there for a long time. The result of the writing of that was the passing of the legislation for ESOPs, the employee stock ownership legislation that did pass in the 70s, I believe. And it created the opportunity for employee ownership companies to start up, and there are somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000 of those in the country today. And
employee-owned companies.
Employee-owned companies,
where the company's not owned by a bunch of stockholders. It's not owned by one person. It's owned by the employees that work at the company.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, and they do in economic hard times, they do much better than the conventional autocratic dictatorship that most corporations are.
Sure.
Because everybody is paid basically to pull in the same direction at the same time toward the same goal in a way that the corporate dictatorship is not. In a corporate dictatorship, you have the management versus labor. You have a reason for a labor union because the management is trying to suck every penny it can get out of labor.
So,
on the other hand, labor is trying to suck every penny it can get out of management. It's a zero-sum deal. But with an employee-owned company, it pays everybody because everybody's an owner. It's an ownership union, basically. It pays everybody to pull in the same direction at the same time toward the same goals because when the company wins, everybody wins, systematically wins. And not just the bloodsuckers at the top. And when the company loses, everybody loses, not just the little guys at the bottom. And so under those conditions, it puts incentives in a place where it pays everybody to pull in the same direction at the same time. When that happens, you have a company that is much more efficient than a company that is working against itself in a conventional labor versus management union kind of situation.
Did we answer the question, is there something people can do right now about it?
I'm sorry. Number one, you can check out the Capitalist Manifesto.
Okay.
Number two, there is a book entitled The Capital Homesteading. It's just called Capital Homesteading by Dr. Norm Kurland, who is the president of CESJ. It's an excellent book, and actually there are several books on the website that you could check out. But yeah, you can find out about this in detail. And the website itself is an encyclopedia when it comes to this concept. that is a concept that is long overdue.
So other than educating themselves, there's not really much anybody can do quite yet. Like there's no legislation that's actually moving through Congress.
No, but it wouldn't hurt a damn thing to call your senator and your House of Representatives and say, check into the Economic Democracy Act on the website. And if you really want to make America great again and pay off all the incredible debt that we have encountered over the past 4 decades, this thing has the only possibility of paying off the national debt. There's no other way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So not only does it pay off the national debt, it lowers everybody's taxes because it creates so many more tax people who are paying taxes. It is a win-win-win-win-win for everybody except for the damn autocrat who likes the 1% owning and controlling everything.
Yeah, I get why they wouldn't like it. What I haven't figured out yet, I feel like I'm in the honeymoon phase of understanding this idea, but it seems like there has to be a downside. It seems maybe a too good to be true situation, but that's just, again, me maybe being a little bit skeptical of things in general. And again, I don't think we can get all the way there. We're going to be here for 2 hours tonight.
Look at where we are now. How could we go and be doing much worse?
That's true. Understood.
At least let's check out a new idea.
That's the right place to end thing number one. Give the website one more time.
CESJ.org.
And thing number one is typically something that we're passionate about. And I'm not sure I've ever had a guest on this show more passionate about an idea that was discussed on this podcast than Rick was just now. We're going to change gears here in a second. We'll come back with thing two in a minute. But that's the end of thing one. And we'll go to a drum solo. We'll be back in a second. All right, we are back, and we've got we're not gonna deal with fuck politics, fuck economics. We're not doing any of that stuff the rest of the show. That was all covered in thing number one. Now we are here to talk about something, pop culture related. There's music, there's podcasts, there's books, there's all sorts of things that could be inspiring us. And Rick, what is inspiring you right now?
I am binging, Adam, on a podcast.
A podcast.
A podcast.
Is it called Three Things with JR? Is that the podcast?
It is called Philosophize This.
Oh, so not my podcast.
It is not your podcast.
I
may be binging on that after this, but I have been binging on Stephen West and Philosophize This, and it basically is a history of philosophy, starting with the pre-Socratics, on into Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas, Descartes, Kant, Hegel, Marx, etc., etc., etc. And it is the beauty of it is
because I'm going to stop you there because I know what you're about to say, and you need to say it soon because we may have just lost everybody. A philosophy podcast. This sounds awful, right? That was my first thought. I don't think I'm into that. I've listened. I was wrong, and the reason why you might be wrong about that is what?
Is that it is done in plain English. You will understand this if you listen to it. This is complicated stuff translated into plain English, Joe Lunchbucket English, and it is wonderfully done. And it's the genius of it is that it's taken very complicated, very important stuff, by the way, and translated into plain English. And it is really, really, really well done. As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say that it is a missing link in American education today. You do not get access to philosophy in high school. You don't even get it in college unless you go looking for it. And if you go looking for it, it's back in a closet someplace. They're hiding it because you don't walk away from college with a six-figure income with a philosophy degree. But it is incredibly important stuff, and it would change the way that our education functions. It is critical thinking in a way that nothing else is. It is truly critical thinking. We talk about teaching critical thinking, but there is no such thing as critical thinking in a way that that philosophy does it. And when you're talking Socrates, when you're talking Plato, when you're talking Aristotle, it is critical thinking. And again, plain English. It is the same level that you and I are talking right now.
Maybe even plainer. Maybe not. I just said plainer. I'm not sure he would say that. But no, you're absolutely right. You mentioned this day one when you guys arrived here in Virginia, as we started talking about podcasts. We started talking about you being on this podcast, and we started talking about Philosophize This. That night, I put it on my list of podcasts that I follow on Spotify and started listening. I listened to the entire first episode. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 episodes to listen to, which is why you're binging this podcast. And he's absolutely right. It seems like on the surface, like something a lot of people are gonna be like, oh no, I'm not interested in learning about Socrates. And
try it once,
right? But
you'll be hooked.
It's rare that somebody's going to explain Socrates while using an Applebee's analogy, and he does that. That's what he means by plain English. He really does put it in today's terms. He uses colloquialisms, modern language, the language of the kids even sometimes, right? He really does.
He says like a lot.
Yeah.
Even when he doesn't mean similar to.
Like what do you mean, Rick?
Like, yes.
Like like this, like that. Yeah, no, he absolutely talks like a normal person.
He does, absolutely. Not
And
equivocally.
and if you're interested in thought and how people think and why people think the way they do, it's very interesting. And listening to the first episode, it's not the kind of show I'm going to go back and listen again. I didn't take notes. I don't remember everything he said, but I remember bits and pieces. I understand more about why people think the way they do, why they the pre-Socratic method. That actually means something to me now. I know what that means. I've never heard that term before, but it's all of the philosophers that came before Socrates and how they understood how we think and how things are.
The world.
Yeah, the world. And Socrates changed everything, apparently, which is why we all know his name, even if we don't know what he said or what he did. This show can help you understand that. So yeah, I want to talk about my evolution of things I've listened to. For many, many years, pretty much all I listened to was like the Howard Stern show. This
will take you a step up.
This is a different thing. And I'm still a Howard fan. I'm not a hater in any way. I've gotten a little bit bored. It's basically the same stuff all the time. He does great interviews. I still will listen to those, but I'm not interested in hearing all of the other stuff because it's the same stuff every day. And so I have a huge list of podcasts that I'm listening to. So any given day or any given commute to or from work, I'm listening to comedians talk about comedy. I'm listening to NPR News. I'm listening to game shows. I'm listening to shows about music. And now sometimes I'm listening to a show about philosophy.
And one of the podcasts that I suggested you listen to was the one on laughter.
Yeah.
What is laughter?
I am very.
Why do we do it?
And the beauty of this, you don't have to listen to it in order. It's not a serial. It's not a narrative. It's each
They're all
individual
standalone.
show is. Yeah, it's a standalone episode.
Yep.
Excuse me. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go find the episode on why people laugh and understanding the philosophy.
It'll be easy to find because it's the last one.
It's the most recent one?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. So I've listened to the first one, and I'm now going to go listen to the last one.
Yeah.
And then I'll go find other ones in the middle of that I'm interested in as well.
It's terrific stuff.
Good stuff, Rick. That's exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for in thing number 2. Things that are inspiring us that we want to share. Kind of like a recommendation on steroids.
Philosophize this.
Stephen West. And it's available. I found it right on Spotify. It was super easy to find. It's probably available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
I don't know what Spotify is, but I found it on my
Your
iPhone.
You're listening to it on Apple Podcasts.
Okay, whatever it is.
Which is the way everybody used to listen to podcasts.
Okay.
And now everybody listens to them on Spotify, which is just a different music and podcast playing app. All right, we should move on to thing number 3. I had nothing written down. I had no notes. I'm not ready. I don't have a silly, absurd, stupid, crazy thing to talk about for thing 3. However, Rick assures me he does. So take it away.
Okay, well, the thing that I would throw out to you is that my wife and I have a formula for pushing off old age.
A formula for pushing off old age.
The concept is basically you find something that old folks can't do, and then you never stop doing it. And in our case, what we have found...
Wait, let me make sure I understand. Mm-hmm. You find something old people cannot do, and then you don't stop doing it.
Never stop doing it.
So like before you get old?
Yeah, before you get old.
Okay.
And then you never stop doing it. In our case, my wife and I like to run windsprints.
Okay.
I turned 74 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My wife will turn 72 in January.
Okay.
And our favorite thing to do, and we do it about every other week, is to go up to a local college, College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and they have a soccer complex that has 3 soccer fields sitting in a row. And it's one big, huge extent of grass, well-kept grass. We kick our shoes off, and we do wind sprints, 100 to 120-yard wind sprints, and we'll do 8 or 10 of those, resting in between.
Yeah.
And that is our workout. And we wouldn't impress anybody with a stopwatch, but if you put a heart rate monitor, I guarantee you that we would impress. You would see that 2 old folks would get up to 160, 170 beats per minute, and hold it there for half an hour, 40 minutes, with this wind sprint routine, and we do it barefoot.
Why do you do it barefoot?
Because it's so damn much fun. Barefoot in the grass is a massage, a foot massage that just feels wonderful. You can run a little faster because you're not carrying any weight on the feet. And when I would say this, when we go to run barefoot sprints in the grass, we're no longer septuagenarians. We're 17 years old. I am 17 when I'm running those barefoot sprints in the grass.
You and Pam just giggling across the soccer field.
We rip it all the way across the soccer field, and we have a terrific time. And actually, sometimes we run sprints on the local forest preserve. But the best times is when we're barefoot in the grass. So.
Well, you're right. That is silly and absurd. But for real, you guys are doing that.
We do it on a regular basis. I have to confess that 2 weeks ago, I pushed a little too hard and I strained my left hamstring. So I have been for the past 2 weeks I cannot take a full stride. Although this morning I came pretty close to it on the grass, barefoot at Kiki's place. So I'm getting back slowly. But.
So all I got to do to live a longer, healthier life is every 2 weeks go run 12 wind sprints barefoot.
We do the sprints 3 times. I do 3 times a week.
Three times a week.
Pam runs long, but we do the barefoot edition of it once every other week probably.
Okay.
As long as we can run those wind sprints, I'm going to sit there and tell you I'm not really an old man.
Well, I believe it. As passionate as you are and full of life as you are, I 100% believe it. And Rick, I think that brings us to the end of the show.
That was fun.
Thank you so much for doing this. I got to say, I was not sure how this was going to fit in to Three Things with JR because we don't typically talk economics
or philosophy
and wind sprints and philosophy. Exactly.
I did actually
so if there's anybody still listening to this, it's smart people. So people that are interested in learning. And
everybody can be smart.
Absolutely.
Everybody can be smart. All you got to do is know that you're there. You can. And if you give yourself access to the right stuff, you're a lot smarter than you think you are.
So if you're still listening to this, pat yourself on the back. I thank you wholeheartedly for you listening to Three Things with JR. Tell your friends about the show. Support us, follow us, and spread the word because I think we've got some cool things going on here. Rick, once again, thank you for being my guest today.
Adam.
And we'll finish this thing with one last drum solo. Have a wonderful day.